Welcome back to Smith's G5 Football Review. Great football this weekend. We welcome the Mountain West back this weekend as well. And it was a good one for sure. There was a lot of games, a lot of good close games. Did pretty well in my picks. Some not so many, but hey, you win some, you lose some. So we'll hop right into week 8. And we'll start right where the week started with Arkansas State at Appalachian State. Arkansas State's defense got manhandled in this game. I thought the pass game for them was going to be a problem because they were giving up a lot of passing yards every game. And they gave up 216 passing yards, but what did them in heavy was the 305 yards rushing App State gave to them. It was just, it wasn't really close. I mean, I'm surprised the score wasn't even bigger than what it ended up being. Arkansas State's offense didn't play terrible. They racked up 368 yards, so they didn't play miserably. App State, like that running game just really hurt Arkansas State. Dietrich Harrington had 18 carries, 137 yards, 7.6 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. App State linebacker Trey had 9 total tackles, 1 sack, and 3.5 tackles for loss. And of course, Jonathan Adams Jr. for Arkansas State did his thing. 6 receptions, 134 yards, no touchdowns, and it wasn't enough. App State got the win 45-17. Then we move on to Tulsa and USF. A lot of what happened in this game is what I thought was going to happen. Tulsa doesn't seem like the total team yet. They play still a little sloppy, turnovers and penalties and whatnot. But USF just couldn't put anything together at all. They went 2 for 15 on third downs. Tulsa did play very well-balanced football. They passed for 235 yards on 25 attempts, and they ran for 227 yards on 37 attempts. USF, like I talked about, aren't able to get anything going. They had 3 turnovers in this game that hurt them. Tulsa's running backs just had a field day. Derek Prince and Corey Taylor II combined for 27 carries for 176 yards and 4 touchdowns. They had 2 touchdowns apiece. Tulsa wins easy, 42-13. Next game is Louisiana at UAB. I picked Louisiana to bounce back in this game. Teams were definitely evenly matched. I expected this. UAB is a solid team. Turnovers and penalties killed UAB in this game. 2 turnovers, 10 penalties that cost them 90 yards. Hurt UAB in this game for sure. Anytime, like I talked about in my last video, anytime you lose by 1 possession and you have turnovers and a lot of penalties, that's usually the case and why you lost. I also talked about how UAB was able to win without Spencer Brown having a good game. He did have a good game today. He had 28 carries for 128 yards, 4.6 average, and 2 touchdowns. No one really stood out on Louisiana. I think they just played more disciplined football, no turnovers, limited penalties, and they avoided mistakes. Louisiana did bounce back from the loss last week. They won 24-20 in this game. Next game is Georgia Southern at Coastal Carolina. Right away, we got the news that Coastal Carolina will have to go out with their starting quarterback, McCall. I thought Georgia Southern was going to be able to handle the ball a little bit better than what they did. 2 for 12 on third down at the end of the day for a triple option offense that they're a little I don't even want to call them a full triple option team, but it's what they kind of run. So anytime you get in those situations where you can't convert third down, never good. They also couldn't really get the running game going either. Coastal Carolina just really did a great job of really rolling the entire game, just dominating it. So we'll talk about backup quarterback Fred Payton. He did play okay. He played pretty good for having come in as a backup. He went 15 for 28, 252 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did throw 2 interceptions, but hey, he's a backup. You learn from it. Coastal Carolina does get the win here, 28-14. Next game is Temple at Memphis. And another game what I thought would happen did. Memphis's bad defense kept Temple in this game. If not for 4 turnovers that Temple had, Temple might have won this game. They might have been able to keep it a little bit closer to win this game potentially, but they didn't. I mean, like I said, turnovers are just killers for teams, especially when it's turning over 4 times. Memphis did have a much better second half. They outscored Temple 31-14 in the second half. I said Temple would be a big benefit for Temple to get the running game going. Ramon Davis did play well. He had 20 carries for 113 yards. We'll talk about Memphis wide receiver, Calvin Austin III. He had 6 receptions, 184 yards, and 1 touchdown. I said Memphis would win 45-31. Memphis did win 41-29, so I was pretty close on that. Next game is Utep at Charlotte. Again, turnovers did Utep in. They had 3 of them. Utep moved the ball well. They had 374 yards. And as I expected, Deion Hankins was a bright side for them. 18 carries, 119 yards, and 1 touchdown. Like I said, Charlotte's run defense wasn't the greatest coming into this game. UTEP's quarterback, Hardison, did throw 2 more interceptions. That's been a problem for him this year. Charlotte did end up getting this win 38-28. Next game is Southern Miss at Liberty. I expected Southern Miss's defense to not show up, and they did just that by not showing up. Gave up 56 points and 537 yards of offense to Liberty. Liberty QB, my player to watch, Malik Willis, had a game, 24 for 31, 345 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 12 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown. I guess the one bright side for Southern Miss was their quarterback, who wasn't the starter at the beginning of the season, did play okay. He went 15 for 26, 188 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But he had 12 carries for 52 yards with 4 touchdowns. So he did better running than passing, touchdown-wise, but he did his best. Liberty won 56-35. My next game here was the upset I had. I picked Tulane to upset UCF. I kind of expected Tulane's defense to play a little bit better, but it didn't happen. Tulane's offense did play well. They only had 1 turnover. They had 340 yards of total offense. Tulane's defense, like I said, 51 points and 689 yards given up. That'll probably lose you games every time. UCF also did a much better job of limiting the penalties. They had 4 penalties for 20 yards. Much, much better. Dylan Gabriel, of course, did his thing. Threw for 422 yards and 5 touchdowns, so nothing new. UCF running back Greg McCray had 25 carries, 162 yards, 6.5 average, and a touchdown. And UCF wide receiver Marlon Williams had 9 receptions, 174 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Let's talk about Marlon Williams for a second. In his last 5 games combined, he has 54 receptions, 753 yards, 14.9 yards a catch, and 6 touchdowns. So he's good. Anyways, UCF did get the win 51-34. Next game is Florida Atlantic at Marshall. Heavy defensive battle here. Again, penalties for Florida Atlantic potentially killing drives off. They had 11 penalties for 126 yards. No one really shined offensively. Like I said, very strong defensive game. Brendan Knox, my player to watch, he did have 101 yards on 25 carries, and Marshall did win this game 20-9. Next game is Middle Tennessee State at Rice. I picked Middle Tennessee State to win this game because, again, it was Rice's first game in 2020. And I felt good about it because Middle Tennessee State got up to a 28-13 lead, but Rice did bounce back. They were able to make it close again. Asher O'Hara has consistently been putting forth his best efforts to win games. His team hasn't been able to help him. Today, they did have a win, but they finally get another one here. As I said, Asher O'Hara, 24 for 33, 333 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 22 carries for 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rice quarterback Mike Collins had a good game, 18 for 35, 242 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. And Rice linebacker Blaze Aldridge also had a good game. 13 total tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Middle Tennessee State wins this game in overtime number 2, 40-34. Next game is Georgia State at Troy. I was so back and forth in this game. I was so hesitant to pick Troy. I did pick Troy at the end of the day. I said this game could easily go either way. The big thing for this game was Georgia State owned the third quarter. They outscored Troy 20-0 in that third quarter. That was huge. Georgia State was up 36-28 when Troy went down the field with 1:20 left, and they did score a touchdown, but they needed the 2-point conversion in order to tie it. They failed a 2-point conversion. Georgia State wins 36-34. Next game is UL Monroe at South Alabama. More struggling for ULM. Just continue to play poorly. They went 3 for 10 on third down, 2 turnovers. South Alabama racked up 415 yards, and South Alabama wide receiver Kawan Baker had 6 receptions, 154 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The one bright side for ULM was their linebacker, per usual. Travion Webster had 11 total tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. South Alabama gets the win 38-14. Side note, because this year with Corona, the bowl games and bowl bidders or whatever, they're going to be a little bit more lenient on wins and losses this year than others. However, if they put ULM in a bowl who is now 0-6, that'll be a kick in the face to everyone who has a good record and has a winning team that makes it to a bowl, because they don't belong in one. They are probably easily the worst team in FBS right now. Next game is Louisiana Tech at UTSA. Fun game. I didn't guess it right, but I knew this game would be really close. I picked this game to end by 1 point, and it did. I picked Louisiana Tech to win 28-27. UTSA heard me finally after losing quarterback Narcisse for the year last week against Army. They gave the ball to McCormick 37 times. Thank you, UTSA. Thank you. That is literally all you had to start doing. LA Tech really struggled to move the ball. 6 for 16 on third down, 247 yards, 15 first downs, which might seem a lot, but it's not. It's not really. Again, Sincere McCormick, finally, they gave him the ball 37 times. He ran for 165 yards, 4.5 average, and 3 touchdowns. Just keep giving the ball to him. I don't know why it took your starting quarterback to go down to be like, oh, we should probably give him the ball more. No, he's a really good player. He's probably your best player. Give him the ball 30 times a game, every game. Louisiana Tech linebacker Trey Baldwin is probably the one bright side for them. He had 18 total tackles, 14 of those were solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and 1 pass defense. UTSA picks up the win 27-26. Next game was the game I was excited to talk about. Cincinnati at SMU. Cincinnati. Wow. They are a tough team. SMU, a team that easily can put up 500 yards of offense and easily like 45 points a game. Cincinnati had their way, man. What a fantastic game they put together. They wanted that game so much more. The mistakes for SMU just hurt them badly right off the rip. They had a penalty. I think on the opening kickoff, they had a penalty that brought them back. They had kickoffs out of bounds, missed kicks, dropped passes, dropped touchdown passes, first down passes. Cincinnati quickly got up to a 14-0 lead. SMU never recovered. SMU went 7 for 20 on third downs, and they only had 290 yards of offense. That is low for them. I mean, drops, like I said, were huge for SMU. Shane Buechele just got no help. One thing I want to talk about, the announcer was like, he constantly throughout the game, he was like, you got to help your quarterback. You got to help your quarterback. But in the same time, he was like, oh, these quarterbacks have all the time in the world to throw. And the ball would be a little bit behind him, right? And you'd be like, oh, the wide receiver needs to catch that. If the quarterback has all day to throw, why can't he just throw a good football? It blows my mind. But anyways, I said Desmond Ritter had to play perfect, and boy did he play perfect. He didn't play crazy, extremely good passing the ball. He did efficiently passing the football. 13 for 21, 126 yards, and 1 touchdown, no interception. So he managed the game very well in the passing game. But he killed SMU in the run game. He had 8 carries for 179 yards and 3 touchdowns. I said also another thing in this game was Cincinnati needed to get Jared Dokes in the running game going. So they obviously got it going with Ritter, but they also got it going with Dokes. He did have a fumble in this game, but he had 20 carries for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cincinnati dominates this game 42-13. Cincinnati does make a strong case if they win out the rest of the year for potentially getting in the playoffs, depending what happens with the other conferences in the Power 5. Next game was Texas State beating BYU. Again, exactly what I thought would happen. Messed that up, but okay. BYU started off slow. Texas State scored first, went up 7-0, and then BYU just started opening it up. BYU racked up 579 yards of offense. Zach Wilson threw another 4 touchdowns, and 14 different players caught passes for BYU, and BYU dominates 52-14. Next game, we'll be getting into the Mountain West Conference. And this game is Utah State at Boise State, and this was all Boise. All Boise. 450 yards. They only gave up 203 yards. Hank Bachmeier was 20 for 28, 268 yards, 3 touchdowns. Boise State wide receiver Khalil Shakir had 7 receptions, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Boise dominated 42-13. Next game was a good one, Wyoming at Nevada. This game ended in regulation 31-31. Obviously went into overtime. Wyoming kicked a field goal on their first possession of overtime, so they needed to stop or at least hold to a field goal. They couldn't do that. Nevada had almost 500 yards of total offense. Nevada quarterback Carson Strong had a strong game. Threw 39 for 52, 420 yards. 420, what is it? 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Nevada had 2 receivers to go that went over 100 yards. Nevada gets the win in overtime, 37-34. Next game is Hawaii at Fresno State. Again, another team with the turnovers. Fresno State had 4 turnovers in this game. Hawaii really dominated the game on the on the ground. 323 yards on 53 attempts. Hawaii's quarterback, Siobhan Cordero, went 20 for 31, 229 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So he didn't score, but he also didn't turn the ball over, which is more important. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns, 13 carries for 116 yards. Hawaii gets the win 34-19. Next game is UNLV at San Diego State. San Diego State owned the first half. At halftime, they were up 27-0. UNLV's only points came in the third quarter, which were only 6 points. UNLV went 1 for 15 on third down, only racked up 186 yards of offense. San Diego State almost went for 430. They ran for 287 yards, only passed for 137, so the running game was their strength. San Diego State running back Greg Bell had 19 carries for 111 yards and a touchdown. San Diego State wins easy 34-6. Next game is Air Force at San Jose State. A little bit of news. Air Force quarterback Hammond III transferred. We got that news earlier in the week. Just a quick side note there. Air Force had a horrible first half. Their first half drives consisted of a fumble, a punt, and a turnover on downs. And that ended the half. That continued more in the second half. Air Force didn't put up any points until the fourth quarter. San Jose State did a great job of limiting the running game. I think the Air Force ran for 200 and something yards. They're usually closer to 300. So San Jose State did what they could there. San Jose State's wide receiver Bailey Gaither had 8 receptions for 110 yards. Other than that, no one really stood out on offense on either side. San Jose State wins 17-6. And the last game I will talk about here in Week 8 is Houston at Navy. Houston shut down Navy's one strength, which is the fullback. They played extremely physical in this game. Navy again struggled, 166 yards rushing. Navy's just not looking like Navy this year. I don't know how they're even 3-3. It's impressive that they're 3-3. Right now, I would have guessed they were 1-5 or 0-6 at this point, to be honest. Again, Houston put Navy in the position to have to throw. Navy, you are not going to win games throwing the football. And again, this proves it. Clayton Tune played tough. He was getting thrown around there for a little bit. Someone got ejected for targeting on him. He took a shot to the head. He landed on his shoulder. He went through the ringer in this game, and he played tough. He had 24 for 34, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interception. Really showed his toughness. Houston is a wide receiver and arguably one of the fastest guys in college football, Marquise Stevenson. Had 9 receptions, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. And the big thing for me here was Houston really smothered Navy's offense, specifically their fullbacks, who Nelson Smith and Jamal Crothers, who are usually really good. They only had 19 carries for 64 yards, no touchdowns. Houston gets the win 37-21. And that is it for Week 8. It was a good one, plenty of good games on Welcome Back Mountain West, and that does it. So don't forget to like, don't forget to hit the subscribe, share this with friends. I'll see you for predictions for Week 9.